Well, greetings and salutations, folks. I hope everyone is still doing well, and welcome to this early morning, middle of the night bonus upload. Before we jump on into it, a couple quick links. As many of you may know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. These audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click the bell icon. And folks, please leave a comment and share the video. Why? Well, because these things, they really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter, and I do appreciate them. And with that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to this early morning or middle of the night bonus upload, shall we? Today's first experience on the paranormal side. So when I was younger, I had two of my aunts come into the country, and they were staying with us over a summer. I don't remember exactly what year it was. They were happy to be here, and I remember them teaching me how to play Parcheesi, and after some time, one of them left, and the other stayed a while longer. So then, I believe a year or so later, I go out of the country, and I'm there for a while, and then while visiting some cousins, my aunts are with me, and we're all having a good time. We decide to play some board games. The games are going, and we're playing chutes and ladders, checkers, etc. Then we decide to play Parcheesi. Game's going, and after a while, I'm winning. And one of my aunts says something along the lines of, "Hey, you're pretty good. Who taught you how to play so well?" I smile and glance at her and say, "You taught me when you came that one time to the States." The room gets quiet, and they go on to tell me it couldn't have been her. They've never been there before. I assure them they did, and to this day, apparently, it never happened. I can't say it was a dream, because we're talking like the span of a month. It's impossible. I can't recall any significant events on TV since it was summer vacay and everything was reruns, and I never watched sports anyway, so I don't know. Key things I do remember was I never saw their room in the basement. I just never went down there, and I don't remember leaving the house. Has anything like this ever happened to anyone else? Today's second experience on the paranormal side. I'm really not a religious person, but I do believe in good and evil. I believe whatever me and my dogs encountered that night were very evil. I was sitting in my living room watching TV and getting up every hour or so to see if my cat came home yet. He went missing a couple days prior. I had this very uneasy feeling, almost like I was being watched, so I had my gun and flashlight close by. My dogs started barking outside. They do this from time to time for no reason. So I got up and walked outside to the garage door and overlooks the backyard. The dogs were barking at something on the other side of the fence, but it was too dark on that side of the house to see anything from where I was standing. I make a sort of playful barking noise at them and say, "What y'all barking at?" They all three glance at me really quick, return their attention to the fence. This is extremely unusual because they usually run straight toward the fence I'm closest to. As I made my first step toward the gate, I heard that same playful bark, identical to the one I had made 5 seconds earlier. I was frozen in shock. All the hair on my body stood on end. Then I heard a second bark, and this one sounded different, almost evil. My 3 dogs bolted towards the doghouse faster than I'd ever seen them, which snapped me out of the trance of fear I was in. I immediately ran inside, grabbed the gun and light, and I ran to the dark side of the house. I couldn't see anything, but I could smell chemical mixed with burnt plastic, but nothing in sight. I live in the country, so all my neighbors are kind of far from my home, and I would have seen someone if it was a person. I've tried to convince myself it was coyotes, but I know it was not. Today's third experience on the paranormal side. I live fairly remotely in New Hampshire at the edge of the great northern woods, and there are forests surrounding my home. I spent most of my childhood growing up in the woods and never had an issue exploring, either on foot or horseback, and for the most part I've had a good understanding and healthy respect of animals that live in the woods out here. I don't know when I started noticing, but over the years I picked up on the fact that some nights throughout the year the woods felt unwelcoming. I don't know how to describe it other than I shouldn't be out there, and it feels like the woods become an entirely different place than what they usually are. One of the things that I've noticed most predominantly during the unwelcoming nights is that wildlife seems to disappear or act differently. For an example, there have always been coyotes where I live, and I could always hear them howling year-round, except during those nights. I've also noticed that the wild ducks who are typically living in the pond in my home will disappear the day before one of the unwelcoming nights. It seems to me like it's similar to advice I heard said before that if you don't hear any birds or animals in the woods, that there is a reason for them to be quiet. Years ago, I had an experience with what I believe to be not a deer in the area. So I've experienced with weird things, and I know there are weird things going on in the area, as it's typical for the Appalachians. And the feeling that I get on the unwelcoming nights in the woods is similar to that eerie feeling that I had when experiencing a cryptid/paranormal things in the past. Today's fourth experience on the paranormal side. This experience happened a few years ago. I lived in a building with my daughter who grew attached to my neighbor's husband, Teddy, as if he were her dad. One day, while talking with my neighbor's wife, my daughter, 2.5 years old at the time, came running to the door, but rather than running into my neighbor's apartment to go cuddle up with Teddy, she froze at the doorway. She told his wife and I that we needed to be quiet as Teddy was sleeping. Teddy wasn't sleeping. He was, in fact, sitting on the couch watching television. Teddy stood up and called for my daughter to come and see him. Again, my daughter looked at his wife and I and said that Teddy was sleeping and we needed to be quiet. I could see that she was getting upset at the fact that we were laughing while telling her that Teddy was awake and he wants you to go sit with him. Teddy started to approach the doorway where we were standing, and my daughter began to cry and ran to our apartment screaming, "No, Teddy's sleeping." I could feel the goosebumps running across my body. That same day, my daughter went to a relative's place for a sleepover. I had invited the neighbors to come over for a bit. Teddy came over and explained how he wasn't feeling the best and how he was breathing in and out of a paper bag before coming to the apartment. I insisted that he go to the hospital and make sure he's all right. On the way, Teddy fell ill and asked to pull over so he could be sick on the side of the road. As he was kneeling beside the car, Teddy suffered from a major heart attack and passed away while on the way to the hospital. When the service was held for Teddy, I had such a strong feeling that I had to bring my daughter with me. She brought her favorite blanket, and of course, when my daughter and I got to the funeral home for the viewing, we were greeted by everyone in Teddy's family. They all knew who my daughter was, as Teddy used to talk about her all of the time. I held my daughter close as we walked to the casket where Teddy was lying. My daughter leaned down almost as if she was going to whisper to him. She then told me that Teddy was sleeping and that he was very cold. She took her blanket and tucked Teddy in, then looked at me and said how he was happy and warm now. That night I sat alone in the living room. My phone began to ring 4 or 5 times, and no name appeared. I quickly answered the phone in the middle of a ring, only to hear a dial tone. The call didn't even show as incoming calls afterward. I felt like Teddy called to say goodbye to us. It was so strange that my daughter knew there was something wrong with Teddy before anything ever happened. And a few months later, we went to visit my grandmother who was passing away from pancreas cancer. My daughter refused to enter my grandmother's room. She kept saying how my grandmother was sleeping and that everyone should leave her to go to sleep. I instantly began to cry. Only 4 days later, I got the call that my grandmother had passed away in her sleep. Today's 5th experience on the paranormal side. I'm a truck driver, and how my job works is I will drive to a halfway point and meet with another driver. We'll switch loads and turn back to go home. Well, our meeting point is this parking lot in this ghost town. At least I'm assuring, giving everything surrounding it is abandoned and no other points of interest nearby for several miles. I've been doing the same thing every night, Monday through Friday. Sometimes we arrive at the same time, sometimes he waits for me, and sometimes I wait for him. Well, last night I arrived before he did, and I go out to stretch my legs and smoke a cigarette. It's around 11:40 p.m. Well, while I'm standing there, I notice someone walking up the street. My lights are off, and the parking lot is dark, so there's no way to see me, but thanks to the lights on the highway, I can see him. I don't want to be seen by him, so I toss my cigarette on the ground and get into my truck slowly, making as little noise as possible. I climb into the back of my sleeper and close the curtains, but look out the window and I see an entire group of people, all wearing the same shirt, walking slowly in a line, but stopping for a second every third step. Possibly 20 or so people in this line. I call the other driver to warn him, and I look through a hole in my curtain as they walk by. Then, out the other window, and see them just casually walking down the road. Yeah, they were walking down the middle of the road. I did not get out once until the other driver showed up and we swapped and left. I believe I witnessed a cult. This was in Louisiana, about 30 miles from Hammond. Today's 6th experience on the paranormal side. I live in North Dakota in cattle country. In 2019, my grandfather passed away in the old farmhouse, which was the homestead for multiple generations. He died of suicide. It came out of nowhere and took everyone by shock. He was a very stubborn, independent man, so it was assumed he preferred to die as opposed to being sent to an old age home. He also was known to drink heavily from time to time. My dad and I found him in his rocking chair with the gun he used on his lap. Since then, there have been a run of odd events happening in or around the farmhouse and the yard. Early on, it was little things, doors open that shouldn't be, unexplainable sounds in other parts of the house. One time, I thought I saw my grandfather in the mirror reflection behind me. Overall, creepy vibes, generic haunting stuff. I inherited the yard. It has been vacant since my grandfather's death. I was excited to fix the yard up and start fresh. One day I was in the tree line cleaning up some dead trees when I heard 3 distinct shots, like shots that seemed 50 yards away. I literally hit the ground. After a while I got up and there was no one around. About 10 minutes later, an old friend of my grandfather drove into the yard. I'd known him for years. He pulled up and I asked him if he knew I'd been shooting. He said it wasn't him and he had seen nobody around.
He didn't seem himself. He was usually a happy guy, but on this day he seemed distracted, like he was in a fog. He said to me, "Are you sure you should live here?" I said, "Yeah, that I was excited to rebrand the yard." Not long after he left, about a month later, he died of a stroke. The day following the gunshots, my daughter, 5 at the time, and I were in the old house. She was playing with her toy train while I was cleaning. She abruptly stood up and said, "I want to go home." I followed her out of the house and helped her into my truck. She asked if I could get her train. When I went back into the house, it was like walking into a different universe. It was freezing cold. I could see my own breath. The house was the same, but the colors were different. Almost muted. I was freaked out and left the house. When I left the house, I heard thumping on the walls and the siding of the house started flapping. Freaky. I got into the truck and sped away. When we were a couple of miles away, I stopped and asked my daughter what she saw. She said she saw a man with a pointed hat in the house. She has not been allowed in the yard since. I returned later that night. Stupid, I know. I took some pics of the house, and when I looked at them later, there appears to be a shadow figure with a pointed hat looking at me. I can only see it in the pictures, not real time. I met with a pastor, and he told me that what I was describing, changes in temperature, muted colors, are telltale signs of demonic activity. He agreed to pray and anoint/bless the home. When we went to the house, I was expecting fireworks, but nothing happened. In fact, it was calm, peaceful. I was optimistic things were going to get better. Things were better for some time. To clarify, the house is vacant, but my father and I still have cattle in the yard. Here's what has been happening over the past year. When I'm in the yard, I have unexpected phantom pains in my left hand. Only when I'm on the yard, nowhere else. A stabbing pain in the palm, just of my left hand. There was a large dead coyote in our shop, no evidence of how it got there. One day my dad drove into the yard and found our large bull trapped in the bale feeder. We found a dead cow with a broken neck in the corral. When I approached the carcass, my left hand began to throb. I could smell a unique scent, not associated with livestock. I've been around dead animals, and this was a different smell. Today's 7th experience on the paranormal side. Around 7 weeks ago, I was staying with a friend. I was having housing trouble. Long story short, I ended up moving into her basement temporarily. During this time, I was speaking with my ex-wife through video chat. She's never been one to pull punches or believe in the paranormal. She's a straight shooter. So we end up speaking one night, and I'm in the basement that I'm renting. It was all dark. There was only one light on in the room. My windows are blacked out. We're video chatting, and she says, "What's that grudge-looking chick behind you?" I hadn't really registered what she said for a moment, but then I did. And I realized that she was not the type to ever joke about anything. This house has a history of being built in the 30s and 50s, or at least between the 30s and 60s, Flint, Michigan area. I was pretty startled, spooked, scared basically. I hadn't asked her too much about the description of the seemingly female resembling the Grudge movie. Pretty sure she may have been talking about The Ring, though. We were on a Skype call. It was video chat. My bed was packed, and I had a lot of junk down here. My room is pretty packed as well. There wasn't a lot of space other than just for me on the bed to sit or lie down. This scared the stuffing out of me. I don't know if spirits can sit down in crowded spaces or not. I fancy myself Christian a little bit, of a spiritual background. I've always slept with a Bible next to me on my bed. It was just really disturbing because she doesn't joke like that. I was so disturbed that I didn't really follow up on much of it at all. A little bit more background on me. I had a rough childhood. I got kidnapped at 3 years old by me and my sister. We were beaten repeatedly as children. I had a shoulder separated at 7 years old and was mauled by a family member at 5. Stopped being physically abused by the age of 10. I've been physically beaten up by one of my girlfriends who had the crap beat out of me. My ex-wife was emotionally abusive, physically abusive, and verbally abusive. So a lot of abusive relationships as an adult because I didn't really have much self-worth, self-esteem. You know the whole thing. I've been in counseling my whole life. Getting back to it though, can somebody see a type of thing behind a person in a video chat? Is that stuff real? I had figured that if there were any spirits down here with me, if they didn't like me, I probably would have had a really bad time by now. One of the bad things I should probably mention is that I've had night terrors a lot, waking up screaming, bawling up, crying. That's why I gave a little bit of background. Then depressed throughout childhood into adulthood, massive depressive disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder from repeated traumatic events and anxiety. Background related to the night terrors and waking up crying and screaming. I've been told in the past that there was an entity that had been following me throughout my life that was feeding off of my depression. I was told by a friend of mine if I intimately revoked the entity and told it to leave me alone that it would. Not so sure if it worked. I just don't know if these types of things are drawn to me because of the depression and traumatic experiences throughout my life. I had mentioned the night terrors. I had an instant where I was sleeping on the bed in the basement and I had woken up. I want to say I was crying, extremely frightened, but it felt as though something had grabbed my wrist and pulled it forward, my left wrist. The direction that it pulled would have had to have pulled through the concrete wall. I had an individual say that I spoke with about this, that it may not have been something attempting to harm me, that it may have been something attempting to save me from harm. Also, I lost a friend back in 2016. He passed away. I had found him passed away. And I said some really heartful prayers right there in front of his dead body. And I was told by another, the same one, who told me that something had followed me since childhood to feed off of my sadness. I'd been told by her that he follows me and looks after me and is waiting for me for when God calls me home, or for when my time comes, please pardon the language, for anybody who may be different with religion or spiritual beliefs, because I mean no disrespect. I do want to say that I apologize, but yes, that's an additional thing. I have been told that he follows me and looks after me. I don't know the truth to that, and I would be grateful if there was any truth to it, because I get so frightened and I don't have any children, and he didn't have any children, and we were best friends. And I just know, I am sorry, I am not sure if it's helpful, like maybe he's was the one that pulled my arm, but I don't feel like he did, and I don't know. I apologize. I do want to thank anybody who is listening to this, because this has really messed me up, and I don't know, I need help, I think. Interjection. I think I have a phone call to make. This person needs someone to talk to, I think, and I'm going to give him a holler. Today's 8th experience on the paranormal side. In my country, there is folklore about witches. To this day, in many small towns and cities, people, mostly older folk, still believe in those witches, that they come at night and eat the children. According to legend, witches take the form of an owl and they will fly around at night looking for unbaptized babies to eat. They will put a sleeping spell on the mother so she will not be able to hear the baby cry, and when she wakes up, the baby will be dead in the morning. Sometimes witches will sense a woman that is close to giving birth, and they will stick to that area just waiting. I've known someone whose niece died, SIDS according to the doctors, and they strongly believe it was a witch. I'm 8.5 months pregnant, and I rarely give in to those superstitions. Yesterday, my midwife started telling me about some lady who lost her baby to a witch and that I should start taking precautions. So my midwife gives me this red bracelet of some saint on it. My husband is a believer in those things, so I wear it mostly for him. I'm at the stage in my pregnancy where it's hard to sleep, and I wake up a lot throughout the night. I was having some weird dreams the other night and woke up more than usual. My kid sleeps with the TV on during the weekend, and we also have nightlights around the house. At 3 a.m., I opened my eyes and found myself in complete darkness. I always leave my door open, and some light always comes in. I've heard something moving in my room and in the hallway. I felt it, that feeling you get when you know there is something or someone there. I didn't think so. I got up and turned on my light, started looking down the hallway, saw all the lights on the floor were unplugged. I walked to my kid's bedroom and found it was completely dark as well. I turned the lights on and saw the TV was unplugged. I still had that feeling of something being in the house, and then I heard something running on top of the roof right above me. My dogs were going nuts, so weren't the neighborhood dogs. I went back to my room to wake my husband up, and right next to my bed on the floor was my red bracelet. It looked like it had been undone and was just lying there, and then I heard it. I've lived here 4 years now, and I've never heard an owl around here, but there it was, making its owl sounds. I know what I felt. There was something in my home. I woke my husband up and we checked the house. There was no intruder. I can't explain the feeling I got. I've had some paranormal experiences before, but this was different. Like daring me in a way, mocking me. I wonder if I should be scared. I'd like to clear some things up since I'm getting some questions. Sorry for the confusion. The term witch is loosely used. I'm sorry, I didn't know if there was only one type of witch in the world, and I didn't think people would be offended. For better understanding of this creature, one of the names it uses is Nahali. No one in my family unplugged the nightlights. I have a son with autism and he cannot wake up to a dark house. We don't touch those lights. I turn them on and off with an app. I am not new to the paranormal life. I just never had physical evidence to show my husband. I tend to ignore these types of things. Tonight's 9th experience on the paranormal side. My family and I have been experiencing strange things my entire life. It started when I was born and my parents moved to a new home in a very small town. My mom and brothers used to see shadow figures in our basement. One in particular scared my entire family. He was a tall man wearing a ranching hat, kind of like a cowboy hat, and a trench coat. Even my dad, a skeptic in every way possible, wouldn't go into the basement to this day unless it's an emergency. I have personally seen shadow people around the house several times in my life, heard clanging in the walls, and experienced many other strange things. About a month ago, my entire family was having dinner together. After a while, we all settled in the living room. The seats there are right near the door and are placed in such a way that all but one sofa is facing the door in one way or another. This is when we began hearing knocking. This wasn't unusual, as Halloween was in about a week or so. We assumed it was early trick-or-treaters, so I went to open the door. Nobody was there. The only scary part about this was that the whole family heard it. We just shrugged it off. About an hour later, it began again. This time, my boyfriend stayed by my side as I checked the door. No one. However, the knocking didn't stop all night. They came in threes. This stopped until a week after Halloween. I was at my boyfriend's house and we were cleaning upstairs when we heard the doors getting kicked in. It slammed against the wall so hard that, thinking back, it should have caused damage. We immediately armed ourselves as best as we could and searched the house for an intruder. There was no one there, no tracks in the muddy road leading to the house. Nothing was missing. Still, we were so shaken that we started locking the doors and carefully checking that every locked door in the house was secured. That night, we went back to the house, and the previously locked front door were both wide open. We checked the house again. Sure enough, there wasn't a trace of anyone being there. We had many valuables in the house that a home intruder would have most certainly taken, but nothing was touched. A few days later, the knocking began on both houses. Only when I was around, they continued to come in threes and lasted all night. My sister and my mother heard the knocking on their windows, and my brother heard knocking on his bedroom door. Just the other day, my boyfriend and I were at my house studying for our college classes when we both heard the doorknob turn. I looked up, expecting to see my mom come into the house, only to see the door open completely on its own. There was even the distinct sound of someone pushing the door open with their foot. I asked my boyfriend, and he said he saw the same exact thing as me. It was not an intruder. A little background: we live in a very small town with one of the lowest crime rates in the state. There are several large mansions nearby that would be a better target for burglary. But even then, there have only been a handful of break-ins my entire life. I am almost certain that it's not somebody breaking into both homes miles apart in a rural area where you can't feasibly travel on foot.
All right, folks, there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this early morning, middle of the night bonus as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd really like to thank you all for supporting the channel. It is, after all, your support that helps the channel to continue to grow and go, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and our friends. These creatures are real. These events have happened. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.